You've been told it's complicated, that men are impossible to understand, that love is some mystery only Hollywood can decode. But the truth? Men are simple, not shallow, simple. And if you miss these 5 things, you'll always be left guessing why he pulled away. In a world overflowing with noise, opinions, and relationship rules, it's easy to forget the fundamentals. But beneath the ego, beyond the surface, men long for a connection that's raw, real, and deeply grounding. Today we cut through the fluff and get to the core. What men truly want from a woman and why it matters more than ever. A man may appear strong on the outside, built for battle, wired to provide, conditioned to carry the weight of responsibility, but beneath that exterior he holds a longing just as deep as any woman's to be respected, not for the trophies he's won or the money he's made, but for who he is when the world isn't watching. This kind of respect is not a transaction. It's not something he earns only when he gets it all right. True respect is rooted in how a woman sees a man at his core, especially in his moments of struggle. When a man walks into the space you share, the first thing he unconsciously scans for isn't praise, beauty, or even affection. It's whether or not he feels honored in your presence. That silent question, am I safe to be myself here, even when I'm not winning, guides how deeply he can connect with you. Respect to him is oxygen. He doesn't want to be constantly told what he's doing wrong, where he falls short, or how he's not measuring up. The world already does that. What he desires, and rarely says out loud, is to be with a woman who sees his intention, even when his execution isn't perfect, who speaks life into his effort, not criticism into his flaws. That doesn't mean ignoring wrongs or losing your voice. It means learning how to challenge him in a way that doesn't humiliate him, because men do not thrive in environments where they feel small. They shut down, emotionally withdraw, or worse, they begin to question their own worth, not because they are weak, but because they feel unseen. When a woman gives respect only when it's convenient, or when he's doing exactly what she wants, it becomes manipulation. It turns into a power game. But when she sees his struggle, watches his fight, and still stands beside him with dignity in her voice and belief in her eyes, something sacred happens. He leans in, he opens up, he trusts. Because finally someone sees the weight he's carrying, not just the image he's projecting. Respect isn't just in the big declarations, it's in the small choices, how you speak about him in front of others, whether you interrupt him when he talks, whether you correct him in front of people, whether your tone carries sarcasm or sincerity. Every little cue either builds him or breaks him. And the truth is, most men will stay in a relationship that lacks passion longer than they'll stay in one that lacks respect. Passion can be reignited. But constant disrespect drains the masculine spirit. It makes him feel like he's never enough. And when a man feels that way long enough, he stops trying. Not out of spite, but because hope feels useless. On the other hand, when a woman treats her man like he is the kind of man she can follow, even when he's still becoming that man, she gives him the rare gift of being seen without being shamed. She becomes the mirror he trusts to reflect back his potential, not just his mistakes. Respect is not submission, it's recognition. It's saying, I see the king in you, even when the crown is slipping. It's not about agreeing with everything he says, but disagreeing without dishonoring. And most importantly, it's about letting him lead where he's strong and supporting, not resenting, where he's still growing. A woman who masters this doesn't lose power, she gains influence. Because a respected man becomes a devoted man. He doesn't just provide out of duty, He gives from his soul. He protects not because he must, but because he wants to shield the one who believed in him. That's the kind of bond that outlasts storms, temptations, and time itself. And don't mistake this for flattery or ego stroking. Men can smell fake praise a mile away. What he longs for is real respect, rooted in truth, not fluff. That means holding him accountable without cutting him down, calling him forward without tearing him apart, celebrating his wins and standing by him in his losses. When he knows your respect isn't a mask, but a constant, he breathes easier, he dreams bigger, he becomes more generous, more present, more alive in your love. Because a respected man turns into a man on fire with vision, direction, and purpose. And it all starts with one powerful, often overlooked gift. A woman who sees him not for what he lacks, but for what he carries. That respect, it's rare, it's powerful, and it's everything. A man might fight wars on the outside through work, expectations, pressures, and unspoken burdens, but at the end of the day, what he's really searching for isn't just a place to rest his body. He's looking for a place to rest his soul. And that place isn't a house, a car, or a vacation. It's a woman whose warmth feels like home, not the kind of home filled with walls and rules and routines, but the kind where he can exhale and be himself without being judged, fixed, or controlled. You see, in a world that constantly demands performance, a man craves peace. Not silence, peace. A sense that he can let down the armor, even if just for a moment, and be met with softness instead of stress, affection instead of analysis, presence instead of pressure. This warmth isn't about pretending to be nice or agreeable. It's not about cooking his favorite meal or keeping the house perfect. It's something far deeper, something felt in your energy, your tone, your eyes. It's the gentle way you greet him, not as another task to be managed, but as a man you're genuinely happy to see. It's the way your smile tells him you're safe here. Warmth is a superpower most women don't even realize they carry. In fact, many are told to trade it in for control, dominance, or independence. And while strength is beautiful, when it lacks warmth, it becomes cold. And no man wants to come home to cold. No man wants to feel like he's entering another battlefield when he walks through the door. He wants to feel like he's entering a sanctuary where he can lay down the fight and be held, not in your arms only, but in your presence. Warmth isn't weakness. In fact, it takes incredible inner strength to stay warm in a world that teaches us to be guarded, harsh, or indifferent. It takes maturity to offer softness even when things aren't perfect. And men notice that. A woman who can hold her own but still hold him emotionally, that's unforgettable. That's rare. He may have dated 10 women who had everything together on paper, but the one who left a mark, the one whose energy wrapped around him like a quiet fire, that's the one he couldn't forget, because she didn't just show up in his life, she entered it, like light enters a dark room and changes everything. You don't have to talk endlessly or fill the air with answers. Sometimes warmth is in the listening. The nod that says, I hear you. The look that says, I see what you're going through. The silence that doesn't feel like absence but like presence. A man remembers the woman who made him feel calm in a storm, who didn't add more noise but brought quiet comfort, who didn't rush to fix his problems but let him process them in his own timing, with her steady presence beside him. That woman becomes his home because she gives him something the world never does, space to be human. The truth is, many men go through life without ever knowing what that kind of emotional safety feels like. They're told to be strong, perform, suppress. They're rarely asked how they feel, and when they are, they often don't know how to answer. But when they meet a woman who offers warmth instead of judgment, who welcomes instead of critiques, their guard starts to drop. not because they're weak, but because they finally feel safe. And when a man feels safe, he opens. And when he opens, he connects deeply, fully, authentically. It's important to remember that warmth doesn't mean you abandon your boundaries or become passive. It means you carry grace with strength, empathy with clarity, that you offer him the emotional version of coming home, where the world can't touch him for a while, where he's reminded of who he is beyond the chaos. That kind of woman doesn't have to beg for attention. She doesn't chase, she doesn't control. Her energy alone draws him closer again and again because she offers what no amount of success, sex, or strategy can replicate. A love that feels like peace, a presence that feels like home. And when a man finds that in a woman, he's not just in love, he's devoted, because he knows he's found something sacred, something grounding, something he never knew he needed until he finally felt it. Her warmth. There's something that lives in the heart of every man, whether he's 25 or 70. It's the silent war he fights within himself, the doubt that creeps in when he's alone, the fear that maybe he's not enough, not doing enough, not becoming enough. The world rarely pauses to tell him otherwise. It demands, criticizes, compares, and keeps pushing. He's expected to be strong, to perform, to lead, but very few ever stop and ask what he needs to keep going. That's where the power of a woman's voice comes in. Not just any voice, but a voice that believes in him. You see, men don't just crave sex or companionship, they crave conviction. Conviction that someone sees them, not just the roles they play. A woman's belief in her man is not some abstract idea, it's fuel. It's what breathes life into a tired spirit. It's what gives him the courage to step into the fire of life one more time. Not because she fixes him, not because she makes everything perfect, but because when everything inside him is shaky, she speaks to the part of him that still stands. A man will never say it out loud, but he listens to your words more deeply than you know. He hears the way you speak about him, to others, to yourself, and especially to him when he's at his lowest, when life has humbled him, when he's failed, when he feels like the world has no room for his flaws. That's the moment your voice becomes either his healing or his hurt. If your tone is sharp, cold, dismissive, or disappointed, it deepens his inner. But if your voice carries belief, not blind praise, but real, grounded belief, it lifts him, not just emotionally, but spiritually. Belief is not about flattery. Men can see through fake compliments. What they need is truthful encouragement. The kind that sees his potential even when his performance has slipped. The kind that says, "You're more than this moment. I see where you're going, even if you're not there yet." That type of voice doesn't just inspire, it transforms. A man will climb mountains for the woman who made him feel like a king when he still felt like a soldier. Why? Because she reminded him of who he was before the world made him forget. This doesn't mean you ignore his mistakes. It means you frame them with wisdom. You don't speak from fear, from bitterness, from the need to control. You speak from vision. A man responds not to nagging, but to nurturing power, not to a voice that tries to dominate him, but to one that dares to believe in him, even when he's unsure of himself. And make no mistake, that belief is not weakness, it's not silence, it's strength, it's fire. It takes a powerful woman to look at a man in his unfinished state and still say, "I know you have more in you." That sentence may seem simple to you, but to him, it can be the difference between giving up and going again. So many men walk around hardened, not because they want to be, but because no one believed in them when they were vulnerable. So they buried that side of themselves and became numb. But when a woman comes into his life who doesn't speak to his wounds, but to his worth, everything changes. He starts to open, to dream, to stretch. He stops surviving and starts leading because her belief gives him permission to be both strong and soft, both powerful and human. That's the alchemy of feminine energy. It doesn't push a man, it pulls greatness out of him. And here's the truth. A woman's belief can be the loudest voice in a man's head, even when she's not around. Long after you've said the words, they echo. When he faces challenges, he'll hear your voice reminding him of who he is. When he wants to give up, he'll remember how you looked at him when he was down and how you never flinched. That kind of voice stays with him. It roots him. It holds him, not like a chain, but like a compass. And every time he drifts, it brings him home. So never underestimate what your belief can do. You are not just loving a man, you are helping shape the man he's becoming. And when you use your voice to speak life into him, to speak vision over him, to remind him of his strength, you don't just get a better man. You get a devoted man, a man who will protect, provide, and pour back into you, because deep down he knows you were the one who believed in him when he almost stopped believing in himself. And that is a bond no storm can break. There is a hunger in men that goes far beyond physical touch. It's not just about sex, not just about the body. It's about connection. Deep, intimate, soulful connection. A man doesn't want to just be desired. He wants to feel chosen. Not for what he does, not for how he performs, but for who he is. And in no space is this need more powerful than in the realm of sensuality. He wants to be with a woman who brings her full presence to the moment, not a script, not a performance, not a set of rehearsed moves meant to impress. What he craves is something far rarer. A woman who's there with him, who feels instead of performs, who connects instead of conforms. Most women have been subtly taught to treat intimacy like a duty, a task, a checklist, something to give in order to get affection, love, or security. But when a woman shifts out of that mindset, when she enters sensual space, not from pressure, but from pleasure, everything changes. Her energy changes, her eyes soften, her breath deepens, and a man can feel it instantly, because men are not blind to energy. They can feel when a woman is present versus when she's pretending. And when she's pretending, something in him shuts down. Not because he's shallow or demanding, but because intimacy without truth is emptiness. It leaves him touched but not moved, taken care of but not connected. But when a woman enters the moment from her own desire, when she's embodied, alive, and unashamed of her pleasure, it awakens something primal and profound in a man. He doesn't feel like he's being tolerated. He feels wanted. And that is a rare experience for many men, because so many have been met with obligation, with duty, with silent disengagement. But when a woman looks at him with fire in her eyes, with curiosity in her hands, with presence in her breath, he doesn't just feel aroused. He feels seen, he feels safe, he feels invited into an experience, not pulled into a performance. This kind of sensuality doesn't require the perfect body, the perfect lighting, or some cinematic choreography. It requires something deeper, authenticity, confidence in your skin, a willingness to slow down, to feel, not just do, to connect, not just climax. A man doesn't need a woman who knows every move. He needs a woman who's not afraid to move with her own rhythm, who doesn't shrink in shame or try to be someone she's not, who isn't rushing to be good enough, but is simply being in the moment with him completely. And when this happens, intimacy becomes more than an act. It becomes a language, a way of saying, I see you, I trust you, I'm here with you. In that space, the pressure melts, the masks fall. He no longer feels like he has to prove anything, and neither does she. Instead, they meet each other not as roles, but as souls. as two people willing to be raw, present, and fully alive together. Men are far more emotionally tuned in than they're given credit for. They can feel when they're being used to check off a box or maintain a relationship, and many of them ache for something real, something that nourishes their spirit, not just excites their body. A woman who can offer that kind of sensuality, free from performance, full of presence, is unforgettable. She's not just sexy, she's sacred to him. Because with her, he doesn't have to be perfect, he just has to be there. And that kind of space allows him to open, to surrender, to feel deeply. And let's be clear, this doesn't mean withholding your passion or being passive. On the contrary, a woman who owns her sensuality is powerful beyond words, because she doesn't give to please, she gives to express. She's not acting a part, she is the energy. And in her presence, a man doesn't just feel desire, he feels honored. He feels drawn in, not just by her body, but by her aliveness. When a man finds a woman who is fully at home in herself, who connects sensually with openness, warmth, curiosity, and trust, he doesn't just crave her physically, he reveres her emotionally, because with her, the bedroom isn't a performance stage, it's a temple, a sacred space where walls fall, hearts speak, and something higher is born. A bond that transcends lust, time, and even words. That's what sensual connection without performance truly is. It's a return to truth, a reminder that love at its highest isn't about impressing, it's about connecting. And when a man finds that with a woman, he never forgets her. Not ever. Loyalty is a word people love to say, but rarely understand in its depth, especially when it comes to men. It's not about blind devotion. It's not about staying silent when something's wrong. And it's not about sacrificing your dignity to hold a relationship together. Real loyalty, the kind that doesn't flinch, is something much stronger, much rarer, and far more powerful. For a man, loyalty is not just something he wants, it's something he needs to breathe. Because in a world where betrayal, criticism, and abandonment feel just one misstep away, a woman's unwavering loyalty is the one force that grounds him when everything else threatens to collapse. When a man finds a woman whose loyalty doesn't vanish when he falters, when he struggles, when he's misunderstood, that woman becomes sacred to him. Not because she tolerates everything, but because she knows the difference between a wounded man and a harmful man. She knows the difference between holding him accountable and tearing him apart. She knows how to speak truth with love. And more importantly, she knows how to stay steady when life gets messy. That kind of loyalty is not weakness, it's warrior strength. Because standing by someone when it's easy means nothing. But standing by them when they're in the fire, that's where trust is born. Men have wounds they don't talk about. They remember the women who turned away when they were vulnerable. They remember the look of disappointment, the sarcastic remarks, the betrayal that came after they let their guard down. And so many men, after being wounded like that, decide to never open fully again. But then, if they're lucky, they meet a woman who's different. A woman who doesn't flinch at their flaws, who doesn't weaponize their past, who doesn't keep score or use their lowest moment as leverage. Instead, she stands, not blindly, not foolishly, but firmly, in truth, in faith, in love. And that kind of woman changes a man forever. You see, loyalty isn't just about staying, it's about how you stay. It's about how you speak of him when he's not in the room, how you defend him when others question him, how you cover his name in dignity even when you're frustrated. A woman who's loyal in the quiet moments, when no one's watching, when there's no reward, earns a kind of place in a man's soul that no physical intimacy can ever reach, because she becomes the one person in his life who isn't moved by gossip, by external pressure, or by fleeting emotions. She is steady, she is sure, and in a world of shifting ground that makes her priceless. This doesn't mean you accept abuse, neglect, or being mistreated. That's not loyalty, that's self-abandonment. True loyalty begins with loyalty to yourself. You must know your worth, hold your boundaries, and walk away when someone refuses to honor you. But when you've chosen a man of character, a man who is growing, who is learning, who is honest about his journey, then your loyalty becomes the light that helps him keep going. You become the mirror he trusts most, the voice he listens to when his own is shaky, the presence he reaches for when the world feels too heavy. And don't underestimate how deeply men remember loyalty. A man might not always say it, but he sees the woman who stayed when he was down. He remembers how you stood beside him when others walked away, how you believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself. And that memory lives in him. It becomes the reason he protects you harder, loves you deeper, and gives you everything he has. Because he knows when things got real, you didn't fold, you didn't run, you didn't flinch. In fact, many men will tell you this. They don't need perfection. They don't need a woman to agree with them on everything or solve all their problems. What they crave is a woman who's in it with them, shoulder to shoulder, heart to heart. A woman who looks at him with steady eyes and says, I see you, I know this is hard, but I'm here. That single moment of loyalty, especially in a time of weakness, carries more weight than years of shallow comfort. So understand this, your loyalty is not just a trait, it's a weapon. It's a healing force. It's a sacred vow you make, not to ignore truth, but to walk in truth without letting love be shaken. And when a man feels that from you, when he knows that your loyalty isn't fragile, isn't performative, and isn't dependent on him being perfect, he doesn't just stay, he commits, he devotes, he builds with you, because he knows you're not just a woman in his life, you're his foundation. And in a world of temporary connections, that kind of loyalty is not just rare, it's legendary. There is a kind of woman who walks into a room and doesn't have to say a word, but everyone feels her. Not because she's loud, not because she demands attention, but because she carries something most people have forgotten how to hold: herself. She doesn't shrink to be liked. She doesn't morph to be accepted. She doesn't beg to be chosen. She knows who she is. And in knowing herself, she becomes magnetic, powerful, irresistible, not just to men, but to life itself. For a man, being with a woman who knows herself is a profoundly grounding experience, because she doesn't ask him to complete her. She doesn't need him to constantly reassure her of her worth. She brings her own wholeness to the table, not her brokenness disguised as a demand for love. She's not in the relationship to fill a void. She's in it to share her fullness, and that changes everything. A woman like that doesn't chase. She chooses. She doesn't need to manipulate or seduce with insecurity. Her presence alone speaks louder than any game or tactic ever could. When a woman truly knows herself, her values, her limits, her desires, She stops settling for less than truth. She no longer confuses attention for affection. She no longer tolerates half-love, hot and cold behavior, or emotional breadcrumbs. Why? Because she's already chosen herself. Her self-respect is not negotiable. And a man can feel that from the first conversation. He senses that she can walk away at any time, not out of coldness, but out of clarity. She's not looking for a man to rescue her from herself. She's inviting him to walk beside her, not ahead of her, not behind her, but beside her in mutual power and presence. This kind of woman is not controlling, but she's clear. She knows what she stands for. She honors her body not as an object, but as a temple. She doesn't use it to gain favor or to buy love, because she already lives in love with herself. And that kind of self-possession is electric to a man who is ready. He may not even fully understand why, but he feels safer around her. Not because she's soft and sweet all the time, but because she is real. She doesn't fake it. She doesn't perform. She lives in truth, and truth is what every man ultimately hungers for, even if he doesn't know how to ask for it. A woman who knows herself does not need to tear others down. She doesn't compete. She doesn't gossip. She uplifts because she's already full. Her friendships are sacred. Her standards are rooted in self-love, not fear of being alone. She is able to receive love without losing herself in it, because she never gave herself away to begin with. She kept her core intact. She knows how to be intimate without being consumed. She knows how to give without depleting. She knows how to stay open without collapsing. This kind of woman doesn't panic when a man pulls away. She doesn't fall apart when things get uncertain, because her identity isn't wrapped up in whether a man stays. She knows deep in her bones that she is the prize, not because she's arrogant, but because she's aligned. She has done the work. She's faced her shadows. She's learned from her heartbreaks. And now she stands not as someone desperate to be saved, but as someone ready to build. She wants a partner, not a project, a lover, not a lifeline. Men may be initially attracted to beauty, to charm, to mystery, but what keeps them, what roots them, what inspires their loyalty and devotion is a woman who knows herself. Because with her, love is not chaos. It's clarity. It's not drama. It's direction. She brings peace, not because life is perfect, but because she isn't afraid of life. She's not afraid of her emotions. She's not afraid of her depth. She can hold her own storm and still make space for his. And that is rare. So if you're wondering what makes a woman unforgettable, it's not just her body, her voice, or her smile. It's the energy she carries when she walks through life as her full, unapologetic self. A woman who knows her worth, who protects her peace, who speaks her truth, who lives from the inside out. She's not looking for a crown, she is the crown. And any man who stands beside her doesn't just love her, he respects her. So he grows with her, because she's not just his partner, she's his reflection, his challenge, his inspiration. A woman who knows herself doesn't just change the relationship, she changes the man. And that kind of woman, she doesn't wait to be chosen, she chooses. First herself, and then only a man who's worthy of meeting her there. So here's the truth, stripped of all noise, all games, and all pretense. What a man truly wants from a woman isn't as complicated as the world makes it seem. He wants respect that reaches deeper than status, warmth that feels like home, belief that strengthens him, sensual connection that awakens him, loyalty that steadies him, and above all, a woman who stands rooted in her own power. Not perfection, not performance, but presence, real, grounded, feminine presence. And here's the beauty of it. You don't have to become someone else to offer these things. You don't have to change your voice, your body, your history. You don't have to be younger, flashier, louder. You just have to return to yourself. Because the truth is, when you live from your essence, when you walk in your wholeness, you don't have to chase love. You become the space where love wants to land. Let others settle for surface. Let others exhaust themselves with tactics and trends. You rise higher. You live deeper, because you know that a real connection isn't built on trying to be enough. It's built on being true. And when a man meets a woman like that, a woman who is clear, open, powerful, and real, he doesn't just want her. He honors her. He chooses her, not out of pressure, but out of pure, undeniable recognition. This is the kind of woman I can build a life with. And that is the kind of love that lasts.